Hello everyone. In general, almost a whole week has passed since the release of the rail. I decided, as planned, to write a review on it, but before we start, I want to note the fact that this video will be translated and voiced using a neural network, and, accordingly, you will hear me in English voice acting. This is, let's say, a trial version. I want to see how well it works. Well, accordingly, I really hope that it will be easier for the majority of the audience to perceive the information I have said, so let's try. Well, now let's move on to the analysis of Raul himself. Let's start by looking at his auto attack. He has 5 basic attacks in total. Now let's look at each auto attack individually to understand how quickly you can get away from the enemy's link. It is worth noting the fact that you can leave at the beginning of 5th auto attack and you can leave after it almost immediately. That is, in fact, Riley's auto attacks are mobile. You can escape the enemy's link at almost any time. This is a very big plus, but if we talk about auto attacks in general, we can't say that they have any fairly large distance, that is, pay attention, yes. Let's see what's there in terms of recovery after the first auto attack. That is, it is clear that the enemy recovers quite quickly, but at the same time the rally himself can make the first auto attack quite quickly. The only thing is that, of course, I think there will be problems with ping. Situations may arise when the enemy simply presses a dash because you hesitated a little. What I like about his auto attack is that literally after the second auto attack he already knocks the enemy down, and he has the ability to poke 1 hit at a time. Can do 3 hits, 2 hits. Relly's worst auto attack is this one. That is the 4th, right? It cancels out pretty quickly after you've already done it. But she forces us to expose ourselves the most. Therefore, if you catch the enemy, then use a maximum of 3 auto attacks. And what I also like about basic attacks is that the 2nd and 3rd basic attack can be very good at lifting the enemy off the ground. Good auto attacks. Such auto attacks are appreciated. Well, now let's look at the 5th auto attack. This is a slash that flies across the entire arena and holds the enemy for quite a long time. Near the wall, this allows you to literally catch the enemy and run to him without using dashes, without using skills. That is, you can calmly, if something happens, run to the enemy just on your foot. I think you have already seen how I use the 5th auto attack when I catch the enemy. I don't try to immediately get close to the enemy, I try to inflict as much damage as possible from afar. Let me now immediately demonstrate to you how I win back from the 5th auto attack if I caught the enemy. That is, I am in no hurry to approach him. I keep my distance. I use all my skills as much as possible. You see, after each skill of my neighbor, I always step aside. I'm in no hurry to start hitting the enemy with auto attacks, so as not to once again expose myself to the enemy's link. That's basically what his auto attacks were all about. Let's move on to discussing the first skill. The first skill looks like this. He flies, it seems to me, probably in terms of speed, just like the first skill of the original Mihawk. The only thing is that its coverage area is probably a little larger. The skill, it seems to me, is quite weak. It is more used to keep the enemy at a distance when you have caught him, or to create space in order to force the enemy to move. You throw the skill, the enemy moves away from him, and you should immediately, in theory, use a continuation of the first skill under his dash. As for the lunges themselves, regarding the first attack, there is nothing special to say. This is just a blow that injures the enemy. No longer has any effect on the enemy. Let me now show you with an example how his strikes work. That is, you see, yes, this is a simple blow that has no effect on the enemy. The second continuation of his first skill, it slows down time, but as you can see it doesn't work the same as Mihawk Time Skip, which has the ability to knock the enemy out of the red shield. Please note that Mihawk's first skill knocks the enemy out of the red shield and drops him to the ground. Agree that both visually and in its idea. The skills are very similar, but for some reason it works for Mihawk, but not for Rally. It is immediately worth noting the fact that none of the first skills has the ability to knock out Logio. Looking ahead, I'll say right away that Rayleigh has only one skill, capable of knocking out Logio, and this is actually strange, given the fact that we position Rayleigh as a master who masters all types of will. Well, accordingly, let me now demonstrate that none of the first skills has any effect on logic. That is, you see, neither the slash works, the second skill does not work, and, accordingly, the third does not work either. By the way, I didn't say anything about recovery after the first skill. Please note, in principle, it is precisely on this slash that Rayleighs can be caught. That is, you see, everywhere he makes a certain pause, into which you can, let's say, get in and punish him. Therefore, take this into account too. Well, let's move on to the second skill. Let's see what it looks like. That is, this is such a counterattack. It is immediately clear that a continuation is opening. What should I say? During a counterattack, you can click on auto attack and you will throw a slash like this, the same one you throw on your fifth auto attack. Let's see what a counterattack looks like if the enemy hits it. That is, the Rayleigh teleports to the enemy and strikes with a sword. In principle, there is nothing supernatural or any additional nuances here. This counterattack also does not knock out logic. Well, now let's look at the continuation that opens after using the counterattack. This is a lunge that does nothing if you don't reach your opponent. Well, if you reach the enemy, you grab it and for, one might say, a long time you get a red shield. This is basically a good enough skill to finish a combo. That is, roughly speaking, you have dealt all the necessary damage, and you realize that you can no longer keep your distance, you need to approach the enemy, you can use this grab to finish the combo and deal a sufficient amount of damage. Regarding recovery on a counterattack, let's do it again. You see how long he does not have the opportunity to make a dash. That is, it will be very sad for you if you do not have time to do anything with the enemy. Do not catch him, do not use auto attack. Moreover, you cannot throw out a slash after your red shield has disappeared. That is, you won't be able to leave and throw a slash. That is, you see, as soon as the Rayleigh's red shield disappears, it becomes vulnerable to a counterattack, and in principle it can be pulled out. Moment to punish. Therefore, still, if you use a counterattack and you see that the enemy is not going to do anything, it is better to press auto attack to shoot. Because otherwise you will simply be punished. Accordingly, if you do not hit the enemy with the continuation of the second skill, please note that the recovery is also quite long. If I'm not mistaken, in the gameplay video that I posted on the first day of release, I punished the enemy with this attack. I dashed and just punished him with a basic attack. So keep this in mind too, that you can easily be punished for this too. But the situation changes a little when you catch the enemy with this skill. That is, pay attention, I am red, and, roughly speaking, I can dash from a red shield and can safely leave. Accordingly, this is what concerned the continuation of the second skill. Let's now take a look at what this is all about. This is the Royal Will. It is activated by this scale. I can immediately say that this, in fact, is simply a way out of the Royal Will. Just like an extra dash that doesn't do anything. He has red armor on him, but you will still receive damage. That is, pay attention, you see, I pressed left, but at the same time received damage. Let us now return to the Royal Will. Let's see what effect it has on the enemy. That is, we activate and the enemy loses balance. As you may have noticed, we are getting a red cheat for a short time. That is, in this way we can dodge some short links. Accordingly, what changes during the use of the Royal Will? By and large, nothing changes, except that Rayleigh's continuation of the second skill and the counterattack itself change. You see, if we click on counterattack twice, Rayleigh will begin to walk around the arena with such a pathetic step. We use the second skill and then click on it again. Notice the effect this walking has on the opponent. Roughly speaking, it has no effect and causes dot damage. But at the same time, in order to inflict this dot damage, you need to be incredibly close to the enemy. Note. Accordingly, what is the meaning of this skill? That is, you activate it, use it, the enemy attacks you, and Rayleigh makes a counterattack. Now, by the way, pay attention, he was supposed to capture the enemy, but since Rayleigh does not have Haki for this skill, that is, he cannot grab Logia, he delivers a blow like this. This also applies to large characters that Rayleigh can't grab, like Big Mom for example. Accordingly, let me now show you what this counterattack should ideally look like so that you actually capture the enemy. That is, our enemy counterattacks you don't need to press anything at all after we activated counterattack. Yes, we started walking. Rayleigh does everything himself, you can kind of manipulate the movement where Rayleigh will throw the enemy. If you haven't baited the enemy in any way, you'll just walk around, but you always have the opportunity, like in the first version of the counterattack, to throw a slash at the enemy with an auto attack and thus catch him off guard. Let's see what happens when the enemy doesn't attack you and you just walk around the arena. That is, you see, I'm going to press dash now. That is, in principle, the enemy can get into this window and attack you. I also forgot to mention the fact that if the enemy is close enough to you, yes, and you use counterattack, but the enemy doesn't attack you, you can use the follow-up right away. That is, from a counterattack you can immediately use the continuation of the second skill, without waiting for the end of the animation. This works exclusively with the continuation of the second skill, that is, let's say, you will not be able to use the first skill. You will not be able to use the active, you will not be able to use special. When you use the Royal Will and you use a counterattack, you have another continuation open in the form of such a lunge. If you do not hit the enemy, then the skill will look like this. Accordingly, if you do not hit the enemy, there is a chance that the enemy can punish you. What else should be said about the second skill? You can use a counterattack in a normal state and then go into the state of Royal Will. That is, now pay attention to how I press the buttons. That is, in this way you can enter the state of Royal Will and thereby activate this walking. Accordingly, what is worth noting, the only skill which has the ability to knock out Logia is a continuation of the second skill in a state of Royal Will. That is, this is the skill. Let's get a look. That is, you see, he knocks the enemy out of Logia, and he is the only one, which is actually, I think, absurd, because Mihawk has 3 skills that can knock out Logia, and Rayleigh only has 1. But it is as it is. Let's now talk about his active skills. The first active skill looks like this. Rayleigh drinks sake, thereby replenishing 1 cell of the Royal Will. What is interesting about this skill? If you click on the skill, the relay will shake the bottle, thereby lowering the half-down of the skill. This skill does nothing else, and, accordingly, the second active skill looks like this. You see, it destroys the projectile, and this blow destroys the enemy's projectile. And this slash also destroys the enemy's projectile. In addition to the fact that he destroys projectiles, he has a red shield for a short time at this moment. Allows you to do a little face rolling. When you are, say, next to an enemy, during recovery you can try to catch the enemy with the help of this. The only thing is that these 2 skills, he doesn't seem to use them very quickly. That is, you see, I already pressed the button, the skill was already activated, but the animation did not have time to match for me to get a red shield. As for recovery, I think that, probably, on this option, you are unlikely to be punished by anyone, but here you can already be punished. What I like about this active skill is that after you catch the enemy, you can allow yourself to move away from the enemy in this way to a safe distance in order to avoid, for example, a link of some bug. Let me now show you with an example how. What I mean, you see, basically, the same situation with the activation of the Royal Will. That is, you can catch the enemy, move away, and use the Royal Will to avoid damage. Let's look at his special. Special has several variations. The first variation looks like this, that is, when you are next to the enemy. Special is quite strong because you just can't guess where the Rayleigh will teleport. Accordingly, this was the first option for using the special skill. Let's look at the second. Accordingly, to use the second option, we need to hold down the button. Thus, the Rayleigh does exactly the same thing, but before starting to cut the enemy, he makes such jumps towards the enemy to get closer. Standing next to the enemy, too, in principle, you can do this. You see, you, so to speak, make such jumps around the enemy, thereby, one can say, you force the enemy to spend more dashes before you start cutting him. This, in principle, is probably even the best option, because you force the enemy to spend more resources. Special also has the ability to deal a little more damage if you press Royal Will and then again on a special skill. Now pay attention to how I press the buttons and that is, you see, 5,000 more damage. Accordingly, Special also does not have the ability to knock out Logic. Now pay attention, let's look at its recovery. But there is some short period of time during which, in principle, the relay can be caught. Let's now see if you suddenly decide to use his blow at the end. Well, basically, the situation is exactly the same. There is nothing more to say about the Special SKL. Let's see what his ultimate looks like. We estimated the distance, how far Riley jumps. In principle, from here I will hook the enemy. Well, accordingly, this is what the ult looks like. In principle, there is nothing special to comment there. Ulta is just like ult, nothing supernatural. Visually, I like it less than the same Mihawk time skip. Let's now look at recovery if you missed. Oh, well, you see, yes, that is, you can safely use dash to escape. Let's now probably move on to setups. In principle, there is nothing special to say here. That is, you should try to play from the 5th order attack, catch the enemy, keep the enemy at a distance for as long as possible and then get closer to deal the remaining damage. You need to learn how to first of all hit the enemy with the 5th order attack. As I said earlier, you can try to take risks during recovery and catch the enemy with this skill. I don't recommend catching the enemy by activating the Royal Will, because you just won't reach it if your distance is far enough. Please note that with this skill you cannot reach, but with this you have the opportunity to reach. You can catch the enemy by activating the Royal Will, but you need to keep a good distance from the enemy. In general, it seems that Riley doesn't have any setups. You just need to be able to play well from all these moments. In general, in fact, if we talk about the character as a whole, the character probably turned out weaker than he could have been made. It seems to me that maybe the developers should have saved some things. Transfer from the old rail. To some extent, they reduced his mobility and made him more of a counter-attacking character. If the previous Rayleigh was more offensive, then this Rayleigh is more about counter-attack and distance. That is, the character itself turned out to be quite mediocre. We can say that he is very similar to Mihawk time skip in his gameplay and in general in his skills. The only thing is that, of course, Rail has only one skill, which is the ability to catch logs. Mihawk has 3 of them, but Mihawk does not have. At the grips, Rayleigh has 2 grabs, but at the same time this first skill, he does not have the ability to knock out the enemy from a red shield, and Mihawk has such an opportunity. Accordingly, Mihawk also has 2 variations of the special, which are radically different from each other. Well, in general, it seems that Mihawk somehow has more interesting in terms of skills. Well, in general, of course, I really like Mihawk in terms of sound design. I was also very upset by the fact that the moment where Rayleigh stops Mark with one finger. In the end, he was made as an assist, as a link. For me, it would be better if the developers made a counterattack just like this. It's immediately recognizable, it's immediately hype. In general, I think that they missed the point in this regard. Speaking about the character as a whole, I would rate the character as, it's normal, in principle, it's quite good, but it doesn't have any wow effect at all. An ordinary character, I gave him, in principle, 8 out of 10, he definitely doesn't deserve more. At some points it even seems to me that 8 out of 10 is even high for him, although many people admire him and, let's say, think that he is kind of stupid, but in fact his stupidity ends when you meet a normal opponent who understands everything perfectly. Why do you press what buttons? Why do you press? In principle, Rayleigh is quite easy to play against if you understand when to punish him. Normal opponents see this whole thing. These counterattacks are not ideal, they can really set you up regarding. I didn't have any expectations for the character itself, to be honest. I wasn't really looking forward to it, so I didn't experience any great disappointment. I thought there would be some interesting mechanics, some surprises, but it turned out that the character turned out to be quite simple. In principle, the developers could not do anything supernatural or cool. But that's how it turned out. In principle, this is not bad, because, in fact, we got a completely different character who plays in a completely different way. So, in principle, there is nothing much to complain about here. In principle, that's all. Thank you very much for watching. Write what is your opinion regarding the relay. In principle, we discussed a lot of things, and they asked me a lot of questions about it in the comments. I have already answered many. Yes, in general, to all that there were. What can I say? We are waiting for Prime Whitebeard. To be honest, I don't know what to expect from him. As practice shows, in fact, it is possible. Expect anything. Let's see what the developers can surprise us with when they release Whitebeard's Prime. That's basically it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to write comments, write your opinion. Well, bye bye everyone.